guys, welcome back to a page in the chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige and today we are talking about the best books that I read in 2023. I read over 100 books in 2023. I think it was 103, 104, somewhere around there. So I read plenty and I'm here to tell you what the best books were and why, and hopefully you will get some great recommendations from this video. I am happy to hype up or convince you to read any of the books on this list because they are all incredible and so fun for very different reasons. I had one of my favorite reading years in 2023. I feel like I really found some favorites and some things that just made me super excited about reading again, and I'm so excited to share those with you today. So if you guys like the sound of this video, you would like to stick around and see more from me, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload every single Wednesday and every single Sunday, so that is no shortage of bookish content here for you guys to enjoy. Also, do please feel free to check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Page and Chapter so that you can see some behind the scenes of what I'm reading in real time and get my reviews in real time and see some favorites as I'm reading them. You don't have to wait till the end of next year to find out what my favorites would be. So without further ado, let's get on into my favorite books of 2023. I very much kind of just want to get this one out of the way. I think this was probably on a lot of people's lists. This was such a hyped book and its sequel was so hyped. I think you guys can also tell from my background that I love this book. And so a book that I am just going to briefly mention because I don't think anybody needs this book explaining to them is Fourth Wing. This is my beautiful Waterstones exclusive edition with sprayed edges. If you've somehow been living under a rock, this is an adult romantasy series that follows a kind of war college where the students have to kind of fight to the death in order to bond with a dragon and become a dragon rider. And we follow our main characters Violet and Xaden as they navigate this school. They kind of end up being linked together, and even though they hate each other for very valid reasons, they are forced to kind of work together. And this book is just really fun. Is it perfect literature? No. Is it like the best example of a fantasy book in the world? No. But it is just good fun. It takes tropes and plot lines and it does them really well. I am not of the belief that every book has to be some brand new original masterpiece that no one has ever done before. Sometimes it is enough to take things that work, put them in a new world, put them with a new mythical creature or a mythical creature that we haven't seen being published in a while, make some really fun characters, and just write a book that does all of those standard things well, and it can be really fun. And I think the hype around this book kind of speaks for itself. I am not one to usually give in to hype, but I am so happy that I read this. I have begged every single person in my life to read it. I just think this is so fun. I haven't put the sequel on this list but because I'm kind of just talking about them together, but also loved Iron Flame. Cannot wait for whenever the next book is going to be released. This is like my new it series. I'm obsessed with this. And then whilst I'm already talking about fantasy, I kind of can't believe that I only read this book last year. It feels like I kind of read it the year before last, and also I should have read it sooner because this is such a huge book series and it took me so long to read it. But that is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I avoided reading this book for the longest time because I read Samantha Shannon's other book, the one that's like a Bible, Priory of the Orange Tree. Is that what it's called? I don't know. I really did not like that book and it kind of put me off reading anything else by Samantha Shannon. Also, this book series has a main character called Paige and I typically tend to stay away from characters that have the same name as me. It kind of pulls me out of the story. I know it should do the opposite, but I just don't really vibe with characters that have the same name as me. So it took me a really long time to get around to picking this one up and give it a chance, but I was so pleasantly surprised by this. I loved it so much and I am hoping to continue with this series this year. I just didn't ever really continue. I tried to read the mime order and I had like a soft DNF, and then I kind of just stopped picking it up because I got busy, and then I just didn't go back to it. But I'm really hoping to give this series another go this year, because I do think it's great and everybody loves it and everyone that I work with loves it, and I want to be in on the love for this series. I don't even know how to begin to describe what this book is about. It is a completely unique idea, a new world. It follows our main character Paige, and she is secretly dabbling in clairvoyance, which has been banned in London, and she is kind of working as part of this like seedy underground network of people in London who are secretly using their powers, and this kind of gets her into some trouble, and yeah, the story kind of takes off from there. It is so difficult to try and describe without spoiling it, and I do think this is a really good book to go into not knowing too much. But I had so much fun with this book, and I'm really hoping to continue with it this year. I had some really good luck with fantasies last year. The next book that I feel I have to talk to you about, and was one of the best books of last year, and also is a book that I continually talk about all of the time, King of Wrath by Anna Huang. I'm just a big fan of this author in general. I have read almost everything she's put out. There are some backlist ones that I haven't got to, but any of the like big popular releases I have read. I think this is her best. The thing about Anna is she can take a trope and she can do it really well, and she has examples of most of the tropes. I love this one because it is Marriage of Convenience, and it is probably the only book I've ever read that has done Marriage of Convenience in a contemporary romance setting, and it has worked. Normally I save Marriage of Convenience for historical romance or fantasy romance because I just don't see how that could be believable or how it could work in a contemporary romance setting. Obviously there are different cultures where that could work in, but I'm just talking like a typical contemporary romance that is either set in England or the US, which is normally what gets published and what gets popular. Marriage of Convenience just doesn't really work. I mean, fake dating can just about work. Marriage of Convenience doesn't really. But this book really makes it work. It does it so well. And not only does it come up with a really good reason for why this marriage of convenience occurs, you need a little bit of suspension of disbelief, but I do believe Anna did the best she could with this. Not only did it give us a really good reason for why this situation was occurring, it then just continued and did the trope well. This is honestly one of my favorite romance books. The rest of the series has dropped off a little bit. For me, I wouldn't say they were favorites, but I am going to keep going with them because I'm hoping for another experience like King of Wrath. I have spoken about it so much, mostly because I'm just in awe of the fact that we have a modern day setting in America where a marriage of convenience was good and actually added to the plotline and added to the character development and added to the romance development. It just really worked and was really fun, and I need that from a romance. I need a romance to be fun, and this one did it excellently. And if you are looking for a marriage of convenience, if that's a trope that you like, or you just want a really fun, giggly romance novel to just get you through a hard day, I really strongly recommend this one. Taking a little turn into the only non-fiction on this list, I didn't read a huge amount of non-fiction. I kind of felt like my non-fiction needs were being taken care of by my master's degree, but this was one that we kind of got talking about as a cohort on my master's degree, and I then just really wanted to go and read it. I was really interested in it and I felt like it was beneficial for me to read, and I think this is one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read. It was super engaging, easy to read and easy to understand, and that is Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. So when you do a course like mine where there was only one male in our cohort and everybody else was women, and it was a Master of Science degree, a lot of conversations about women in STEM come up and feminist topics come up a lot, and this book was constantly referenced by people and cited by people and led to some really interesting discussions about women in science. And this basically is a non-fiction book that delves into all of the data gaps that we have in the world and how that negatively impacts women. So for example, one that really stands out is one of the first stories in this book is about how street cleaning or like snow clearing in a country in Europe, I can't quite remember which one, how it was being done around like men and how men's morning routines went and how men needed to like typically drive to work, and all of that data about how women experience their mornings and the jobs that women have to do, like it just wasn't taken. They didn't have the data for that, and that was leading to more cost to the country in terms of healthcare and accidents that were happening by the fact that women were having to do school runs or go about their general tasks on snowy, like dangerous streets because the roads were being cleared so that men could get to work better, and how when they changed that they actually saw a massive like improvement to the toll of healthcare on that country. Or as well, just a throwaway sentence in this line that I think about every single time I put my Apple Watch on. The Apple Watch was marketed as like the everything that you need, the best watch you could have for health and fitness, and it was like the best thing that humans could have. Does it track cycles or periods though? It does not, so surely it's just the best for men, because it doesn't track women's health, clearly. Like, this book was just so interesting, and I thought because it was looking at data bias and data gaps it would be kind of dry to read, but it is not. It's so fascinating and easy to read. I mean, I've got so many tabs in this book. I love it. I then went and bought Unwell Women because the sections of this book that talked about healthcare and gaps in medical science for women were fascinating to me. So picked up this one as well. I haven't got to it yet, but I assume at the end of this year you're going to see this one on my favorites list. And basically, yeah, I've been in a little bit of a feminist non-fiction hole. Yeah, I really recommend this. I think if there's probably any book in this list that I could recommend to you the most, this is probably the most important one to read, and was just so fascinating, and I have rambled about it enough now. I would say that this book is in contention for my favorite book of the year. I haven't picked like one favorite this year. Normally I do, but this year I just don't want to because it would be impossible for me to decide. But this one is up there. If you were to ask me what my favorite book that I read last year was, like gun to my head, what would it be? It would probably be this one, and that is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Kind of broke my heart and put it back together again. That's how I would describe this book. We follow our main character Florence, and she can see ghosts and has always been able to talk to ghosts, but it's kind of made her life more difficult in the past, and we ironically see her in the present day. She is ghost writing for another author, but having gone through a horrendous breakup, she's really struggling to write the ending of this book, and her new editor will not give her an extension on this deadline. But then one day her brand new editor, who is very attractive might I add, turns up on her front door as a ghost, and we see her navigate this situation. It is a very family oriented and friendship oriented story, which are the ones that tend to get me. Very bittersweet, incredibly heartwarming. It's so much more than a romance novel. It has incredible relationship development, and that is a huge driver in this plot, which kind of brings you back and keeps you in it, but it is so much more than a romance novel. It really delves into a lot of big topics. See our main character Florence really evolve over the course of this book and go through a lot. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, like, the best way I can describe this book is it broke my heart and then it just put it back together again. I loved it. Love doesn't even begin to cover what I feel about this book. I will be rereading it this year for sure. It's just so good and one of the best romances that I've ever read, hands down. If you would like to go down the more cozy route, but you still want something unique and unusual but romance, then Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater is for you. This is a really short but really cozy and wholesome story. We follow our main character Theodora, and when she has an encounter with someone from the Fae realm when she is younger, she kind of ends up with half a soul because this Fae creature was trying to take her soul and was interrupted halfway through, and we see her trying to navigate Regency England while she has half a soul, and this kind of ends with her not really understanding social cues or being able to properly navigate Regency society, and her as she meets Lord Elias for the first time over the pages of this book, and they kind of go about on this adventure to figure out why children are becoming sick or going missing. We see our main character really learn to be okay with her struggles and learn that she can still be a whole person even if she does only have half a soul, and she can experience things as a whole with only half a soul. It is just a very, very, very cozy, adorable read. It's so fast. It kind of feels like curling up with a mug of tea. Like, it's really, really, really cozy, and cannot recommend this book enough, honestly. If you liked Legends and Lattes or any of the Travis Baldry books, then I think you would really enjoy this one as a next step, because it's got the same kind of vibe. And then the next two books I have to talk to you about are ebooks that I read. The first one being Heartless by Elsie Silver. I read my first Elsie Silver novel for a video that I did, I want to say last year, which was a reading small town romance vlog. And I concluded at the end of that video that I hated small town romances. I did not love the first book in the Chestnut Spring series. I didn't hate it, but it didn't really make me fall in love with Elsie Silver or the Chestnut Spring series or small town romances. But what it did do was really stick with me, and I ended up going and reading the rest of the series because there was just something about it that was so easy to read and so objectively well written as a romance that I just kind of found myself reaching for that world again and ended up being obsessed with it. I am an Elsie Silver girly now. I'm just obsessed. It was so good. My favourites from that series are Heartless and Hopeless, and I think Heartless just takes the edge. So I'm talking about Heartless today. This book as well takes the cake because I managed to give this book 5 stars when I hate the tropes. I read these books out of order because I purposely skipped this one because I knew that I hated the tropes. This is a single dad nanny romance and I hate those. Like, it's just personal preference. I really hate them. So I avoided this one. And then after I finished the series, someone had told me that this one was actually really good and I would probably really like it. And also I just wanted more Elsie Silver and Chestnut Springs content because I'd finished all the other books. And I went and gave it a go, and honestly this is one of my favorites in the whole series, and I gave it 5 stars. I adored this book. It is so readable. It made me cry. Like, it was so good. Even if you hate single dad nanny romance, I think this one is just so fun, so spicy still, that it really works. And yeah, honestly, such a vibe, this one. And then the final book on this list is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. I love this series. I do think the first book is a little meh, but she really hits her stride with this book. It deals with some much more serious topics, like in the same way as a lot of the romances on this list, to be honest. It is so much more than just a romance. I really gravitate towards books that have that romance element and are strong on watching two people find love, but also it not being that straightforward. And I don't mean like a two people meet and then they get together and then something happens and they break up and then everything goes wrong for a little while. I mean, like, people have baggage, people have backgrounds, people have other stuff going on in their lives. Nothing happens in a vacuum, and I really like it when romance novels touch on that and have that be an element in the book. I much prefer that to having a third act conflict. Like, sometimes that can lead to the third act conflict, sometimes you just don't need it at all, but I just really like to see well-developed characters who have shit going on and seeing that shit kind of occur and have an impact on the storyline and the relationship development. And that is something that Liz Tomford does incredibly well, and particularly in this book. It was just one of my favourite romances that I read this year, and I think the third book in the series, Caught Up, will probably be one of my favourite books of this year. I read it at the beginning of this year and it made me cry. I cannot remember if I cried at The Right Move, but I was probably close to it if I didn't. I just think that everybody needs to get on this like Liz Tom Ford thing. I'm also incredibly excited about some future books that have been teased by this author. At least it seems like they're being teased by tropes and kind of little plot points that are being brought up at the end of the book. I will say you should read this series in order. Whilst it technically is a series of standalones, they each take place after the events of the previous book, so you are going to find out what happened in the previous book and what some of the issues that the previous couples dealt with. It's not a spoiler to find out who's going to end up with who. That's kind of obvious before you pick up a romance, but the later books in this series spoil some of the details of previous books and what the characters go through. So for that reason, I think you should read them in order, because there are kind of spoilers. I would recommend reading these in order, but I think you should 110% read these books because they are just the best. They are so good, and I cannot wait for more of them. And so that is the best books that I read in 2023. This is the best of the best, the creme de la creme of the 104 books that I read in 2023. These are the ones that really stick out as favorites. There are obviously some more that could have been added, but these were just the ones that were like on another level that I really am excited about and wanted to talk about. So I didn't like go for the 10 best or anything like that. I just did like the ones that felt like they were on another level. And that is these books. If you guys have read any of these books or want to read any of these books, please let me know down in the comment section. I need people to fangirl with about these books because they're just the best. And if you enjoyed watching this video, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for videos every single Wednesday and every single Sunday here on this channel. No shortage of talking about books. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and got some recommendations from it, and I hope that you guys are having a fantastic week, you're enjoying everything you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, and I will see you for my next video. Bye guys.